A long time ago in a distant kingdom, a young woman named Talia was born, the daughter of a powerful nobleman. From birth, Talia was surrounded by mysteries and omens. One day, the court's wise men analyzed her future and made a terrible prophecy. Talia would face a tragic fate, as a flax splinter would plunge her into a sleep so deep it would resemble death itself. Desperate, Talia's father ordered that all flax be banned from the kingdom. No spinning wheel could operate and no clothing could be made. For a time, it seemed the threat had been averted, and Talia grew into a young woman of indescribable beauty and remarkable intelligence. But fate, relentless as ever, cannot be avoided. One day, while exploring the far reaches of the castle, Talia came upon an old woman spinning at a wheel. Fascinated, she approached and, unaware of the danger, touched the spindle. The moment the flax pricked her skin, she collapsed to the floor as if dead. Her father, consumed by grief, tried everything to revive her, but it was in vain. In his desperation, he placed his daughter's body in a distant castle, wrapped in silk and adorned with jewels, believing this would allow her to rest in peace. And there Talia remained, motionless as the world continued on its course. But the castle, hidden in the heart of the forest, would soon be visited by someone who would change her destiny in a dark and tragic way. Talia's castle, abandoned and overgrown with vines, became a legend among travelers and hunters. Many claimed it was cursed, a place where time had stopped. One day, a king hunting in the forest stumbled upon the place. Curious and ignoring the warnings of his men, he decided to explore it. Upon opening the heavy doors, he was engulfed by an eerie silence. Everything within the castle seemed intact, as if the years had passed it by. Ascending a spiral staircase, he eventually found her, Talia, lying on a bed of silk, looking like a marble statue, so perfect he thought her a divine vision. Enchanted by her supernatural beauty, the king approached, but realized she neither moved nor breathed. Overcome by a dark desire, the king violated Talia, even though she was trapped in a deep sleep. After the act, he left her there, still unconscious, as though nothing had happened. The weight of his actions did not follow him as he returned to his palace, seemingly forgetting the young woman entirely. Meanwhile, Talia remained in her deep slumber, unaware of the shadows now surrounding her existence. But fate, ever relentless, had other plans for her. Something extraordinary was about to happen. Time passed, but Talia's body showed no signs of age. Yet something inexplicable occurred. In her state of sleep, Talia gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, who came into the world by some twist of destiny without her ever knowing what had transpired. The children, frail and hungry, cried incessantly beside their sleeping mother. One day, as one of the babies searched for food, they sucked on Talia's finger. At that moment, the cursed flax splinter was removed and she awoke. Confused and disoriented, Talia found herself in a strange room with two children at her side. At first she thought it was a dream, but upon seeing the smiling faces of the little ones, she felt something new, an overwhelming love, though she had no idea how they had come to be there. As she explored the castle, she discovered it was deserted and forgotten by the world. However, her instinct to protect her children became her guide. Isolated, she began to raise the twins, improvising a simple life within the abandoned place. While Talia cared for the little ones, the king, far away in his palace, began to remember the young woman. Something seemed to draw him back to the castle, as if fate were calling him again. He decided to return to that enigmatic place, unaware that the choices of his past awaited him in unexpected ways. Restless from vague memories, the king returned to the castle. Upon entering the vine-covered gates, he felt the same chill down his spine as during his first visit. But this time the silence was not absolute. He heard children's laughter echoing through the halls. Ascending to the room where he had once found Talia, he was stunned to see her awake, with two children by her side. For a moment he hesitated, his mind struggling to comprehend how this was possible. Then without remorse he revealed who he was and what he had done. Upon hearing the king's confession, Talia felt her world crumble. Rage, horror, and disbelief consumed her, but as she looked at her children, she realized her existence was intertwined with all that had happened. Although the king's presence disgusted her, she did not confront him. Deep down she feared the power he wielded. The king, on the other hand, found himself even more drawn to Talia now that she was awake. He proclaimed his love for her and declared that he wanted to take her and the twins to his palace. Reluctantly, Talia realized it would be impossible to protect her children if she refused. So she accepted the offer, but silently vowed to keep her children safe at any cost. Fate, however, had one more cruel twist in store. The king was already married, and his wife, the queen, was a proud and cunning woman. When she discovered Talia and the twins, it didn't take long for her to piece together the truth. Consumed by implacable hatred, she began to plot her revenge. The queen, upon learning of Talia and the children's arrival at the palace, was overwhelmed with unbearable rage. The king tried to hide his connection to Talia, but the queen soon uncovered the truth. It wasn't just jealousy that consumed her but also the fear of losing her position and power. She ordered one of her spies to monitor Talia's every move. That's how she discovered the presence of the twins, whose features seemed to reflect the king's very bloodline. Her hatred grew and she began to plot a dark revenge, targeting anyone who could threaten her sovereignty. First, the queen sent a messenger to the royal cook, a man who feared for his life under the palace's orders. She commanded him to capture the 2 children and sacrifice them. Then he was to prepare a banquet using their flesh and serve it to the king without his knowledge. The cook, horrified by the order, hesitated but knew disobedience would mean his death. He decided to follow the plan, but when he entered the children's room and saw their innocent faces, he couldn't go through with it. Instead, he hid the twins in his own home, substituting their flesh with that of animals for the banquet. When the feast was served, the queen watched the king avidly, waiting for him to savor the dish, unaware of what he was supposedly eating. The king, unsuspecting, praised the meal, which filled the queen with malicious delight. But she was still not satisfied. Her next target would be Talia, and this time her plan would be even crueler. Frustrated at not yet having utterly destroyed Talia, the queen devised a more direct plan. She summoned the young woman to her chambers, feigning cordiality and offering her a false opportunity to explain herself. Talia, despite suspecting the queen's intentions, knew she had no choice but to accept the invitation. Upon entering the chambers, the queen greeted her with an icy smile. Her voice, sweet yet treacherous, concealed her true intentions. The queen confronted Talia, accusing her of stealing the king's affection and bringing disgrace upon the kingdom. "Do you think you can enter my home, my world, and take everything that is mine?" she hissed. Before Talia could defend herself, the queen revealed her plan. She would order Talia to be burned alive in the town square. The decision would be presented as an act of justice, punishing Talia for supposedly seducing the king and threatening the throne. Talia was shocked, but before she could be dragged to her execution, the queen made a fatal mistake. In her fury, she mentioned the death of the children and how the king had savored the banquet prepared with their flesh. These words awakened something in Talia. Despite her pain and despair, she screamed that she had done nothing to challenge the queen. Her words echoed through the corridor, overheard by a loyal servant of the king, who immediately rushed to inform the sovereign of what was happening. Meanwhile, the queen was unaware that her plan was beginning to unravel. Driven by her blind hatred, she prepared the pyre where she believed Talia would meet her end. But fate once again had other plans. When the king heard the queen's words and learned of her plot against Talia, he was overcome with intense fury. He realized that the queen, driven by jealousy and hatred, had lied and conspired against Talia and the children. Furthermore, the revelation about the banquet turned his stomach, and he rushed to the kitchen, demanding the truth from the cook. Trembling, the cook confessed that he had hidden the twins, protecting them in his home, and had never carried out the order to kill the children. Relieved to discover his children were alive, the king ordered them to be brought immediately to the palace. Meanwhile, Talia was tied up and taken to the pyre prepared by the queen, who watched with a triumphant gaze. The fire had just begun to kindle when the king entered the square, carrying the twins in his arms, and shouted for everything to stop. The crowd fell into absolute silence, watching as the king confronted the queen. He accused her of betraying his trust and attempting to destroy his family. Enraged, the queen tried to defend herself, claiming that everything had been done to protect the kingdom, but her words rang hollow in the face of the truth. Finally, in a gesture that many considered cruel but just, the king condemned the queen to the very pyre she had prepared for Talia. As the flames consumed her, Talia, still in shock, was freed by loyal servants. The people, bewildered by what they had witnessed, began to applaud the king, accepting his decision as a form of divine justice. But for Talia, the scene brought no peace, only a bitter sense of relief. With the queen gone and the truth exposed, the king attempted to persuade Talia to remain in the palace by his side. He proclaimed his love for her and their children, promising to care for them and provide everything they needed. For the king, it was the beginning of a new era, but for Talia, the proposal was a burden. She looked at the man who had been the source of so much suffering and realized that, although her life was now free from immediate danger, she could never forget what he had done. Her children, innocent twins, were the only thing she cherished in that place, but even they carried the weight of a story marked by destiny and the abuse of power. Talia agreed to stay at the palace, but only for the sake of her children. She became queen as the people, impressed by her strength and resilience, began to revere her. Over the years, she slowly earned the trust of the court and took on a more active role in governing the kingdom. As for the king, though he believed he had earned Talia's forgiveness, he realized he would never truly reach her heart. She treated him with cold courtesy, maintaining the necessary distance to preserve her own sanity. The twins, named Sun and Moon, grew up strong and wise, protected by a mother who did everything to give them a life different from hers. They inherited Talia's light, but also the cunning of those born amidst the shadows of a cruel fate. In the end, Talia became a legendary figure in the kingdom, admired for her courage and resilience. But in the darkest corners of the castle, whispers lingered of how Sleeping Beauty had been awakened not by love, but by the cruel whim of a powerful man. And so, while the kingdom prospered under her reign, Talia carried with her the invisible scars of her story, a reminder that not all fairy tales end happily but only with survival. And so ends the true story of Talia, or as many know her, Sleeping Beauty. A tale not written to enchant, but to show how destiny can be cruel and relentless, even in the most distant kingdoms. If this story has sparked your curiosity about other dark versions of fairy tales, click on the next video that will appear on the screen. And remember, not every legend is as they tell us. Sometimes the darkest truths are the ones hidden between the lines.